What an entrance, right? My name is Romina. I'm an alcoholic.
Romina.
Yeah, and the Drunk Stars comes from Berkeley. That was one of the first meetings that I sobered up in San Francisco Bay Area, and I came north. My sobriety day is April 30th, 1988, and so we moved north in '90, and. And so one of the first places, we rented a place in Fremont when we moved to Seattle. And one of the first meeting I went, which you know, I didn't want to move north. That wasn't my idea. But actually, my experience sobriety is that a lot of ideas that were mine ended up being better. So that was the beginning of becoming aware of that. As you can tell, let me start from the beginning. As you can tell, I'm not exactly a local girl. I was born and raised in Rome. And, um, you know, I don't have one of those long stories of drinking for 20 years. And mine was fast and furious. And because drugs is part of my stories, too. So, and that kind of accelerates things. And so I experimented with things, I wasn't really, yeah, I experimented with alcohol. I think I had small little encounters when I was really young. Um, I have memories, I come from a proud family stock of alcoholics. Somehow it skips few members, but my father, my grandfather, and me. Out of three sisters, I'm the one that kept the torch going, and so I have memory of family gathering and drinking a little bit of whatever was left of sweet liquor. For the holidays, they would get things like mandarin liquor or cherry liquor, shit like that, and I remember starting to taste that. But I can't say that, it was little experiments over the years. I think it's like, getting the data into my brain. But then I didn't do anything until later. I think the very first drink that I remember that I drank was alcoholically. Was about maybe 18. I tried a little bit of marijuana, things like that, but wasn't my cup of tea at that time. And so after trying a couple of times, I didn't like it. It made me paranoid. And oops, it's okay. I'll get it later. And so, but then I had my first drink at 18, and I remember that I drank. This is the connection to the sweet liquor. I drank about three-quarter of a bottle of sweet vermouth. You know, the one they use for cocktails. I passed out. I threw up, and the following day I did it again. So that's the way it started for me. I can't say that I really like drinking. I was thinking about this. The longer I stay sober, the more I go back, and my birthday is coming too. Drinking wasn't exactly I found that it worked really well. When I had that drink the first time, before passing out, I had vague memory of the exhilaration of having found something that made me feel whole. I don't think I ever felt whole. I was always, growing up in an alcoholic family, you never know how to operate. Things were volatile, chaotic, and I was one of those invisible kids. I was always trying to dodge things so I would disappear, and so when I found that drink, I found that, oh man, I belonged. I just belonged. I felt warmth. I felt that I was funnier. I was better looking. I was witty. I had everything, and I did that. But again, my drinking didn't take off right away then. Then I started to experiment a little bit more with smoking. Back then there was ash. Um, that was an historical period when there was a Lebanon war, and I think in Italy they, I don't know who did that, but organized crime maybe, I'm not sure. But there were a flood of red Lebanese ash in the market that would exchange for weapons. And so the market was completely full. Also, that was the time when a lot of dope came into the scene, heroin. And so I didn't do anything until I started to travel. I always loved travel, so I started very young to travel, and I noticed that drinking when I traveled around was kind of a nice way to connect with people. So that kind of escalated for me. Eventually, in my early 20s, I came to the U.S. I was traveling there too. I took a year off. I still was manageable in my life. I had some money that I've saved. I wanted to travel. I wanted to go solo for a while, and I wanted to take a year off, a sabbatical. That's when I landed in San Francisco, and that's where things really started happening in an accelerating way. I got to say that I really had a lot of fun. There were a lot of good years there out of this shit I'm going to share with you. But back then it was, I enjoyed what I was doing. I loved the fact that I was able to go somewhere and travel. I traveled throughout Mexico by myself. I even hitchhiked in Mexico. Now, in hindsight, I know that that was stupid, irresponsible. That's the stuff that I did when I drank. I would put myself in situations that were really crazy. And so, anyway, I started to drink more, having fun. I had language problems, barriers, of course, and I noticed that when I drank, I could speak to everyone, even the bar stools. It wasn't difficult. And so that continued escalating until, I think my story is not much different than yours. That is, I kept drinking. And then I actually stumbled into a friend, uh, and she invited me to smoke some heroin. And that's where it really took off for me. I mean, opioids it's a big part of my story. The smoking went quickly into injecting, and but throughout this, drinking was always the constant for me. And if I didn't have one thing, you can bet sure that I was drinking obliviously. I did that for quite really about 7 solid years there. From my not even that 6 years, I was about 23, and I came to the program at 29. um, I did the geographics. I moved, and the last one about a year before I sober up, I went to New York. Who knows what I thought I would do in New York, or different than San Francisco. But I went there and spent 6 months there, and that's really when it got bad. And when I hit the bottom, it just took me to horrible places. I don't know if familiar you are with New York, but back in the 80s, the ABC was really the ghetto. I mean, you had to go with really with security to enter those areas. So I just got to that point. I wrote few notes because sometimes then I forget. Now I'm entering an age which I forget things too. Um, what I want to say, but that place of pitiful, incomprehensible demoralization. I say, what a somewhat nice girl like me doing here? I am dying. I was 27, no, 28, and I got to that place real fast. I don't need to tell you how many times I black out, how many times I mean, you know that. I'm sure that you have a similar story. But I got to that point in which I was sure that I wouldn't be alive by age 30. That's when I came back to San Francisco. I begged. I remember I begged. I called Bob. By that time, and this is an important part of my story. I owe my husband a big. I'm very grateful for you, honey. I know I don't always tell you that, but it kicked me out, and a couple of years we didn't live together through the worst part, because he wasn't putting up with my shit anymore after I've done horrible things. Those are things that any alcoholic and drug addict does. And so it saved my life because the safety nets were gone. And so I just progressed real fast. And so I called him and I told him that I want to come back and I wanted to stop drinking, using, and I went back home. I didn't stop right away. It took another about a year. And then I asked one of his friends, it was, I forgot his name, not Mark, the other one, Mike. I asked Mike if he will give me some money to go and get methadone. And he said, why would you do that? What is it gonna do to you? Haven't you done that before? I say, yeah. Did you stop? I say, no. I say, why don't you use Bob insurance and go to rehab? So, and that's what I did. I went to rehab. I thought I was going to a golf club or something. I have really no idea. I didn't know much. By this time, I want you to know that I had actually been exposed to A. I was asked to go to A. Probably one of the methadone clinics asked me to go to AA. And I did, but after the third God, I left and I never went back. And so then eventually I went to rehab, and so that this is the drinking part. That what happened is that the first meeting I went, I really felt I was so desperate. I was so resigned and desperate that the first meeting I felt uh, almost like the first time I took the drink. Maybe not that much, not exactly, but I felt hope. I saw people that were coming in, and that this is the beauty, the gift of AA, people coming into groups, coming in into rehabilitation centers. And when I left, I had a lot of connection, and so that hope was just ignited me enough to keep going to meetings. So I started to go to meetings, and for a while I was just on the pink cloud. But then inevitably, a few months later, I started to question everything. I'm different. I'm a woman. I'm from somewhere else. Uh, what's all this God doing here? What are all those men doing here on this book? So I was just looking at the differences all the time for a while until I guess the same way the Skid Row feels different or agnostic feels I mean the same thing until that stuff started to change with the introduction of the steps and the traditions, and I started to feel that I wasn't different. And the longer I stay sober here, the more I know that I'm not. That there are way older behavior even before I got here, even before I picked up the first drink. There are some characters, what I like to call character defaults. Those days I try to be a little more gentle on myself, the way I talk to myself. And you don't have to agree with this. It's perfectly fine if you don't. But these character defects. I don't think today that God makes defective people. mixed just people that eventually, I grow closer to this God of my understanding. And the defaults is something that I had to work with. But anyway, what happened is that after rehab, I started to really get involved into the program. Um, uh, it has been really a big item for me. I don't know how many newcomers are here. Okay. So, early sobriety, it was so important for me to be part of the pack and be involved in things. And I remember that we did a lot of fun things. Of course, I was fairly young too. I was 29, and we would do things like going to the horse races in sober groups, like 6, 7 people in one car, and we would go to dances, we would go for coffee. I mean, that sense of fellowship that I had lost, in the last few years of drinking and drugging, I had burned all the bridges. So coming into A meant to reconnect with the human race. And after a little while with steps and tradition, I started to question less the differences and just being part of this. The thing that I want to talk about is, I remember one thing that I heard Clancy, I don't know, 30 years ago or something, when he said, we're like being on the Titanic, getting the lifeboat on row. And that's what I did. I think I was desperate enough. I really loved this thing of, the gift of desperation. I had that when I came in. I think that the more desperate you are, or I was, and the more I wanted to do this. And so the transformation that happens here is quite amazing. The early sobriety, when I destroyed the trust and really the safety of many people in my life, and starting to, I was so moved when someone gave me the keys to open a meeting. They trusted me enough to open the friggin' meeting, to make the coffee, and then I become a treasurer or whatever. All the things that we do that start building some self-esteem back, because there was none of that when I came in. One of the things that has been important for me during this time, first of all, I want to say, long-term sobriety is possible, because if someone like me is sober, is because of the foundation of this program. It is possible. The key point I want to make is that service has been really the most important thing. And even though over the years I might have, kind of have loosely, sometimes more active than others, but I never left. The constant for me is always being connected to the program, doing something, whether it was, working in the group at a district level, sponsoring people. As I progress in sobriety, and this is really what I want to talk about. It's growing in this program, emotional sobriety. How do we do that? For me, being part of conferences, workshops, I've been doing that throughout. I mean, I just came back recently from IWC. It's the AA International Women Conference. It happens every year. Every year there's a different city, and and um, and I was thinking that I didn't go every year. I've been sober, but I've been going 22 times. And you know why I do that? Because every time I go there, I hear the language of the heart. I connect. I feel the love. I feel this common experience that tied us together. um, the happiness, the joy of being together. I started, I recognize women that I only see when I go to those conventions, and we're happy to see each other that we're alive. They were alive, they were still there, they were still plugged in. I need to be plugged in. Um, when I don't, it shows up. It shows up in behavior. Another big part of my story is is and Bob was instrumental on this one too, because he's been going to Al-Anon for a long time, off and on, in his own way. And I started to notice that he was using the tools that he learned at Al-Anon on me. Yeah, he would say things when we were in the heat of the moment or something. He would say, "You might be right." Oh, let's revisit later. Those kind of things. And I said, I was unable to do that. See, this is emotional sobriety. Being sober, how do I live my life every day? Besides not drinking, which I haven't done in a while. How do I don't want to control outcomes? I don't want to tell you what to do every goddamn day and that kind of stuff. And so I realized that I wanted what he was getting. And so I started to go to Al-Anon about, I don't know, 12, 13 years ago. It took me a long time of healing in this program to be open to that. That's another part of recovery that I find huge, because that really is my relationships with you. And primarily is my relation with myself. And so if I had that a little better, I usually have a better relationship with you too. So those two have been a big part of my sobriety. And also, the other part that it's been really important for me is that I want to share is that if we stick around here for long periods of time and none, we're going to have life, and we're going to, spiritual crisis. And I got to say that over the years, I hit quite a few of those. At first, I was a little bit scared because I didn't know how to handle or what to do about it. But then I realized that, again, because I'm connected to other men and women, that this is part of part of my recovery path. It seems like that every, I don't know, 7 years is something major that that I have to look at. There is some more surrender to do. And surrender to me today is accepting things as they are, accepting reality as it is, not as my fantasy brain would like it to be. Um, Accepting people as they are, man, it's difficult. I need help with that. I need divine intervention on that. And a lot of steps. So having, during this time, how do I know when I'm there? It's when I started to react to things, when I'm not kind, when I get impatient, when I don't feel connected with you guys. Those are all signs that I learned how to recognize. And I also had a lot of beautiful men and women holding their flashlight before me and telling me that those are the times that I went through too. And it's okay. You walk through this one too. Life is ever changing. I mean, who would have thought that I would be here, at 63? I even retired last year, which I'm not sure I really like it completely. But I really didn't think I would be here It's a wonderful gift that this program has given me, and I also want to say that the importance of step 10, 11, and 12. I know that you know what those are, but step 10 is really the step that I got to know myself a little bit better. Um, I get to observe the narrative in my head with step 10, and with step 11, it's where I got to go to know God a little bit better over the years. And step 12, I got to know you. And that's the foundation. When I don't do those steps, it really shows up. Going back to the spiritual crisis, what's important for me that in the last several years is realizing that I need a spiritual practice that takes me through those times. And so the spiritual practice for me has been like, first of all, we always talk about early sobriety. There's a lot of the we is really important, coming from the loneliness and distraction path that I had generated. It was really important to be part of the group. But then, the spiritual practice becomes an I. How am I connected to my higher power today? How do I connect, and how do I feel that my higher power has my back, no matter what? It's by spending more time with step 11 and 12 that I got to go through some really rough patches. And the other thing is that, my higher power really over the years had to work really hard to get through me. I put a lot of obstacles in front of my higher power, economic insecurity, not feeling good enough, not doing enough. You can put ad infinitum. And so growing spiritually closer to my higher power is the essential thing that keeps me happy, joyous, and free. And I just want to say that, we usually always say, the newcomer is the most important one, and that is true. But also the old timers are very important, and the one in between, and one on every faces. Everyone is important here. And you heard that phrase, I want to say, keep coming back. I don't drink no matter what. I didn't like when they told me that, but you know what? I am part of the no matter what club, because what's out there is scary. It really is scary. I know myself with alcoholism and addiction, what will happen to me if I go out there. But plus, I don't care. This life is way, way, way much better than anything I had before. But, we always said, don't live before the miracles, right? Well, to the newcomers, but also I want to say to the old timers, or the one in between, don't live before the miracles, because they keep coming. They keep coming. So thank you for inviting me.